So let's welcome our PgMP certified Mr. Rajan from India. It was great journey with him. We started to work together, and he was a. Then we went to chapter wise questions with him. Then we went with the mocks like our standard procedure. And during the whole tenure, he was a bit, I would like to say, a bit lazy sometimes, not responding. Then I was continuously following up with him. And then ultimately, last month, I told him that in 1 month we have to give the exam. We pushed him too much, and now he is certified PGMP. So, first of all, Rajan, heartiest congratulations to you on this great achievement, which is you are among only 5,000 people in the world to have this prestigious credentials from PMI. So, how does it feel now?
Hey, thanks, Sami, and I think I would thank Amit too. So both of you, thanks a lot. So, in a quick summary, how did it go? Like what you said, I'm just trying to share my lessons learned, which might be useful for the entire. So,
Yeah.
I did not have a plan, so it went well once I started joining you. But let me give it kind of a background of how I actually joined your course. So I had joined in another previous course, which was good. No fault of the training institute, but fault remained with me simply because I did not have a plan. So I thought I can do my studies or reading during my weekend. And I did not have a plan. I did not have a plan saying that I'll have to complete these chapters by this month, take up my tests, book my exam. So that plan was absolutely not there. And I had a mindset that I will not be able to read in the weekends, in the weekdays. So I'll have to push it to the weekends. And even for the weekends, I was able to study at least 1 or 2 hours. But that did not help in completing it. But one good thing was that I was always in touch with the book and I knew what was happening. But the problem was I did not have a plan exactly
Roadmap.
when I'll have to execute. So that's where it is. But I give full credit to my previous instructor. The fault was mine. Then it almost went almost 2-3 months. Then I understood that I'll have to join some course where there are some peer students and where there is some kind of a communication going on. I just wanted to take it afresh. No fault of the previous institute. Again, I would like fault always remained with me because I did not responsibly complete that course, which I should have done. So the fault remains with me. So I'll have to thank him again for whatever help that he had done. So then I started looking first at I started connecting with Amir, and I said that I already studied, so there's nothing that I need to listen from the kind of classes. So I will straight away go to mocks and do it. Then he said fine. Then we had some arrangement, and he gave me all that marks. So I was in between of studying that. Then again, I did not have a plan. So it was just prolonged, right? Because absolutely there is always a delay. It was just prolonged. Then I said, okay, let's go join your coaching classes. Then I started joining coaching classes with you, Sami, and then that I understood. Somehow I should brush up all my skills. So I will have to get enrolled here and just do it afresh. Think that I've not done that before and do it afresh. So that's where I started your association with you.
Right. So the most important thing that Mr. Rajan has said that the main thing is to have the roadmap. Roadmap is actually the document that tells you what are your milestones when you are going to deliver something. The same is with our course. We make a customized roadmap for the students at which moment we have to finish the chapter wise questions, when we have to finish the mocks, and ultimately when we will get the approval from the application, then we are able to give the real exam. So that is the main thing that a lot of 95% or 90 more than 95% of the students take the courses from the trainers. They put a lot of efforts in 3 days, 4 days, 6 days, but later on there is no follow-up. So from our course, the main thing is that we present a customized roadmap which keeps the students on track, and then we also make sure like we always say that I think my KPI is how many students we have passed from the for PGMP or PMP as Mr. Amir is doing, not that how much we have taught. So I think that is the main difference that we bring into this culture, is that once you take the training, then you have to also follow up with the students to keep them on track. So that was the most essential element from Mr. Rajan. And Mr. Rajan, what about the coaching calls that we are having every week, in which we summarize the previous chapter and then we do 10 questions and we have a discussion with all the students who are there? How benefit is it to keep you on track and for the real exam?
So once I started attending your actual course, not just the coaching classes, I made sure that now I should have a plan. So immediately once you completed your chapters, even before that, because I've already studied that chapter before. So what I made sure that before I attend that class, I made sure that I read that SPM book clearly and ask questions on that. So every chapter, I made sure that I come prepared, started your coaching calls, and that coaching calls were more of, I think, predominantly of eco, which I really did not focus on. So one gap that I found in all the coaching calls were eco was stressed more, which I did not really care at all. So that gap I was able to find out once I started attending your.
And how relevant is eco in the real exam?
So one thing that I would say is we should not. The point is we should not memorize that just because these points should not be memorized.
You have to understand the
It is,
keywords.
yes, we should understand the keywords. Not merely keywords. We should. So one thing that what helped me was that it is not possible to read all this code, and we can say it should not memorize. But at the end of the day, what was there in the, that's what we will try. But what I understood that you clearly highlighted those equal keywords. So that was the starting point for me to study. And I made sure that I am not going to literally by heart or memorize that, but I will have to understand what it is trying to say. So even if we are A to Z, if we are able to remember that keywords, we will not be able to answer the question that what they are trying to ask, because that essence is the question. So we should understand that they are trying to ask the essence of that eco. So we should be the eco highlighted keywords are very much helpful. But one input that what I give is not to memorize it or not try to remember, but try to understand what they are actually trying to say. So that point I would like.
So this I would like to add that for all the PMI examinations that we give, there is no direct questions, there are no definitions, there are no mathematical formulas. They gave you the scenario, and in that scenario, you have to understand what action has to be done. And that can only be understood once you know what he's trying to ask and by putting you in that relevant phase. Okay. And how about the master sheet that we have developed? How helpful is that? First of all, to remember all the concepts, and then for the real exam questions.
I know you remember. First of all, I did not believe that without reading the SPM, we should not go to this master sheet. And first of all, I did not believe that we can keep the book aside and look at the master sheet. I did not believe it first.
Okay.
Then, uh, then, then I started completing all your chapter tests. I did not have this master sheet, and that is not good. So I think you make sure that they complete the chapter test. I think that's the right way of doing it. There is no replacement to any book for that. So
Yes.
we should make sure that we read that SPM book, complete your chapter tests, where we will be able to fill in some gaps.
Right.
And then I started looking at the first level of mock test, which I completed. And what I would stress for any of this new joiners is that mark is not important. So you may get even 40 or 50. I got anything around 70s, and that's how it is, not on an average. What I learned from that was we should come out with the gaps of where we missed. And we should not be too much focused on how much we scored. And one thing that I had some peer groups around. I had Ibrahim with me who was also studying. So both were courageous enough to say what each other got, what each other marks were. I found some people were not courageous to even speak out their marks. What that helped me was it judged whether I am at par or I need to do some kind of a corrective action. So both were very courageous to say what our marks is. So I would suggest that we have some kind of a peer group within our whatever classes that we do. And that's nothing. You get 40, 50, it doesn't really matter. Marks doesn't matter here. More matters is how much time you spend on finding out why that was. So what I learned was share our marks or share what we learned. Because when I was studying alone, before I joined this course, I was studying alone. There was no motivation factor. I didn't see another guy who was taking me. So I made sure that I communicate with the peer groups. I interacted with Tashin and Raju, who had already passed. So I was able to get inputs from. So one thing that I would suggest is, whether you know people or not, I think it's our responsibility to connect with previous students because they will try to connect with us.
And I would like to say that, and that's why we have our premium WhatsApp group in which all our students who are passing or who are in progress are always in the group, and all the people are sharing their questions with them. Yes, you are right. Sharing the exam mocks is a personal thing, but whenever you come to us, I always say 60% is enough. And then sometimes you were getting panic that I only got 60% after studying the whole book. You remember in the beginning, then I said that this is normal. Just proceed and we have to do again and again. And experience and the practice, nothing can override it. Once you do more and more practice, that's the key of doing the mocks. Once you practice the things, first attempt, second attempt, third attempt, then you understand why I was making the mistakes. And I told you, Rajan, that in the beginning, if you score less is much better, because in the real exam, you will not, at least you will not repeat this mistake again. And that's why we say that for every wrong question, we encourage the students to do the root cause analysis. Why the question was wrong. And the only thing I would like to say that in the coaching calls, also when we were the question that had no wrong question, we went very fast. But when we found that something is wrong or some other students gave some wrong question, then we were interrogating why he or she thought in this way. So I think that was very important to be connecting with the students, getting continuous contact from your mentor who is encouraging you and who is guiding you the correct way. What is the way not to panic, because this motivation issue becomes a lot of things when you are studying so hard and you get less exam. So it was very good. So what about the master sheet? You missed this point.
Yeah. So first I would like to thank Tashin and Raju for whatever support they gave. So whenever I called and asked any questions, they were able to answer. So I would like to first start with. So I started interacting with the peer groups. I think that's one good thing that I got support and get information. So we were talking about this box and master sheet.
Yeah.
So I did not, first I was not confident. I thought we should read the whole book. So once I completed this first level of mock test, I understood that no matter how long we study this book or how many times we study this book, it is not possible to clear or get all our questions right.
Right.
Because there is some line, some keyword somewhere or the other which we would have missed, which I never looked at that particular line or keyword. So that was not the thing. So then I realized that master sheet was something. And I don't know whether you remember, Sami, each time I write some kind of a mock test, always I try to, I'm not confident. Once I complete that mock test, I would like to move to the book again, take that back, and then that was the confidence that I had. I found that I am better prepared before I take another exam. Even once I finished that reading for the Mark 1, after I finished that Mark 1, again I used to go through the SPM book and then go to Mark 1.
And then it takes 1 week to read again and come back again get 60%, 70%.
Correct. So then I understood that no matter how long you study or how many times I'm going to study with this PM book, then I got a confidence. Then I started understanding what Swami was trying to say. Then after that, I never took the book at all. All that I took was the master sheet. So even in the master sheet, Swami, what I understood of how we need to study is that more than the master sheet, what helped me was your handwritten block diagram that what on each faces.
Mind
That is
maps.
the base. Mind maps. That is the base. I found that was more important than this master. So anybody who's trying to do this, what little tiny bits that I will try to give is till you finish this first level marks, go into this SPM book because that will give that foundation. I think Swami gives this master sheet only once you go to this final marks. So that is the place where we should first take that mind map. And from now on, we should not study chapter by chapter.
Yes.
So what did I understand is from now on, I should not study chapter by chapter. I first went to this, say for example, program life cycle. I first went to this chapter 7, started looking at in formulation, what all comes in each of this chapter. So this mind map and this master sheet helped me to understand that for formulation, I should make sure that I get my business case, roadmap, charter, stakeholder register, benefit register. So for each of these phases, I will go through that and study across all chapters. So I will take chapter 7 life cycle as the starting point, take formulation, do all the chapters like what I said, then come to planning, do all the chapters like what I said. I went like this, except governance, I completed all. And master sheet reading, you should, I took a lot of time on. I would say that I did not just went through the papers just for 5 minutes and that. It took me, for the first time when I read, it took me almost a day. We should be serious enough to look at. So this master sheet is not just like a cheat sheet where we study it for 5-10 minutes just before we write a mark. That's not going to help us.
First, you have to understand what is the content in that. That is actually the summarized sheet, so that before going into the mocks, you just read it. You remember the keywords. What is the background picture? Like every time I say this life cycle is a base. You remember in every coaching call, I try to remind what are the phases. This 2-line story, starting program definition, from delivery phase, components. I think this is a main concept. In the question also, you have to map your question in which phase he is asking. So this program life cycle is a baseline. And just for your information, for the next students, for the next batch, now I am covering chapter 7 in the first. First, I make the introduction, then I do chapter number 7, life cycle, explain them everything, making the activity, and then I go to the strategic management, benefits management like this. I think this is also your feedback coming from the students, right? The life cycle has to be done before.
Correct. So for the first time, it is fine if we read it chapter by chapter. Once we are coming to this final marks, or once we are coming to this mock test, we should not read it chapter by chapter because that helps us out. Like what I said, say for example, planning. So when I go to planning, I make sure all the plans are looked upon, then come to activities, finish that. So only once we read this as vertical instead of horizontal chapter wise, we will be able to understand which comes or which is interchanged. And another mistake that I did was when I came to chapter 8 in terms of activities, I was focusing more on what is the input, what is the output, just like a typical
ITTO.
That's of no use. So even if you don't remember what is happening, it's common sense of what will come or what will out. So we shouldn't spend much time in understanding what is the output of any of these activities. Rather, we should understand why are we doing this activity. That is what is written in the master sheet. Say, for example, schedule assessment. Level of confidence is the key word that you would have given. So what does that mean? So that kind of keywords or why we are doing that activity is what we have to focus. So we should never read it. We should do it vertically. once we start, we should look at that block diagram and written diagram that what you have done, take it vertically and study all chapters related to it. So when you're doing formulation, I should have first started with chapter 7, gone to chapter 2, strategy, come to benefits, come to stakeholder, go to chapter 8, finish all the assessment related activities. Then come to planning, finish all the planning activities. This is how I studied. For the first time, it took me almost a day to read this master sheet.
And then later on, it was very helpful.
I would suggest it is just not helpful. And I suggest it is not just a reading of 5 or 10 minutes, just give a glance. That master sheet is not for that. Master sheet is not for reading for that 5 or 10. It's just a replacement of what is written in a book. Instead of 10 lines, they've written it in 1 line. So we should actually take more time to read that. That's my point.
Very good. So just continuing with the Rajan thing, that the master sheet that we have developed is available for all the students who want to purchase it. It's also available online. And the thing that we have put into that is the mentality of PMI questions, how you have to understand the tone of the questions and how you have to understand what scenario he's trying to explain. So in PGMP, the main is the program life cycle. There are only 3 phases. And then as Mr. Rajan explained, we have to understand what is going on, what activities are going on in the definite formulation phase, planning sub phase, delivery phase, and the closure phase. In this moment, then you can overlap all the 5 performance domains, and then it's very easy to understand what is the correct answer that is going on this thing. So that was a very good feedback from Mr. Rajan. And what about Rajan, what about the final mocks that we are doing and the green highlighted questions that we have developed out of eco? How relevant are those for the real exams?
So green highlighted questions were more useful for me in terms of understanding the basics. Okay. So that really helped me to understand the basics, where we, at no point we should make, those questions are kind of basic questions. We should be very clear of who's responsible for creating this document, who's responsible of modifying this document. So we should never make it at any cost. We should, even if we are looking at a glance, we should never make a mistake there. So all the basics, keywords, basic things got corrected there so that we are ready for the exam. So I somehow felt that green marks were more enlightening to understand my gaps where I made this. Right. So I spent more time on this green marks, and I think from there were also eco-related questions where I was able to close that gap. So green marks were more of basic things. At any cost, we should not get it wrong. So I made sure that it's basically a basic question. So it is not something like kind of scenario questions, but we should get it right at any cost. So whatever little gaps that were there, I was able to clear those.
So I would like to say that the premium questions that we are covering in the coaching call are basically meant to make you understand what are the course content of PGMP. Number 1, that is how I developed these questions, and how you have to read eco, how you have to understand the eco. Because normally, once you are going through the whole course content, when you are reading the book, when you're reading the eco, you understand it's very easy, I can read it. But when it comes to the questions, then your mind should start to think, okay, why this is the question, why this is the answer. So that is a baseline, how you cover the complete course content in those questions. And then when we go to the final mocks, it actually tells you how to attempt the questions from the real exam as per the timer that is going on. So the final mocks that we are doing, the 5 mocks, are very much helpful to help in the real exam day, right?
Yeah. So I think I missed this. I was more concentrating on that green color and missed this final mark. So final marks is a place where we have already studied a chapter questions. We have all the gaps. So I am a old school guy. What I made sure that I took a long note. I did not use an Excel sheet. I took a long note. From the chapter questions, I made sure that whatever questions that I was wrong, I made sure that I put that there. We should not, one thing that what I made sure that, say for example, there were 2 options and one option was the right one and one option was the wrong one, and I've chosen the wrong one. So I made sure that in just 3 or 4 lines, I would not write all the exact questions. I'll just keep a emphasize on what the question is asking, just a one-liner, and say, I'll give a strike mark and say, this is the option which I have chosen and why I have chosen that and what is the right option. So not more than 3-4 lines. I am a old school guy. Instead of an Excel sheet, I would always try to prefer to write it down so that puts it in our mind. So I would emphasize to have a note and make sure that we write it down. Similarly, for the master sheet, I actually took a printout of an A3 printout, cut those into small pieces, and I had it as bit in pieces and with a clip. So I made sure whenever I have a wrong, I look into it and not use a PDF version of the master sheet. So I will emphasis that master sheet. I prefer to have it as a printout. I had a A3 size printout,
and then you cut it.
And I literally cut those into small pieces. So that's how I did.
Okay.
I'm an old school guy.
No, I fully understand. I would like to explain that Mr. Rajan was one of my students who really went depth into every question, and he was trying to understand the things. And I still remember the first day when I had the conversation with him. He said that my target is not only to get the certification, but I should be able to apply the concepts I understand so that I can implement in my daily office life and everything. And I think that after studying with us, going so much in the detail now, you are not only PgMP certified, but also you have a complete overview on the concept that was the essence of taking our course from your side, especially Rajan. How you would like to accept
so
this?
One good thing was I did not have an end date. So
Yes.
that allowed me a freedom to learn more, and there's always an advantage and disadvantage, right? So one good thing was I did not have a date, so I took my own time, and I'm a kind of a lazy guy, and I think for some time, Sami, I would have felt that this guy is not going to finish this exam at any point. I think you would have got that impression from me. So I thought I'm doing it for almost for a second attempt. Came to an institute for the second time. So I thought I should finish it. And I think that motivated me. And there are other peer people like Ibrahim who was also doing it at the same time. So we started interacting, and
but now I think you have a very good overview now, complete picture. You understand everything in detail. And the key point is that like you do practice, but at the last 4 hours when you are sitting in the exam, that is your decision point, how you perform in that 4 hours. But I would say that to be confident and to perform well in that exam, you have to be focused, as we have a last call with you. Be confident, and that can only come once you have a good practice and good background with you. How would you like to experience your experience on that exam day?
Yeah, I would first talk about this practice exam. Okay, so I first did not understand why should we repeat this mock test. I was in fact talking to Ibrahim and saying that there's no point. You do it once, you understand what are the gaps, then you're ready. That's it. But what I realized was the second time, third time you do, there may be some questions where without understanding you would have chosen a right option, which you're trying to make it wrong now. And the whole purpose, the first time, yes, the marks are indicative of where you stand. That is very much important. But again, marks is not important, but at least we should know where we stand, and that is the gaps. I did not really understand why we need to repeat those mock tests. I was not appreciative. I was not confident on it. But anyhow, you told me, I just said, okay, let's follow that. Let's do it second time. And I think what made me to do that at least 5 times was the second time, third time, fourth time, I made sure that I'm reading the question correctly, made sure that I'm reading all the options. I'm not going to run through it. Why each option was wrong. So first time you will have the pressure. I think for the second time, third time, marks are not important. Anyhow, you're going to score that. So what made me learn from that was, instead of reading that master sheet again, then actually this is another way of reading it to understand why this question was right or wrong. So each time we do is literally one way of reading that master sheet. That's the only purpose of doing it. I think doing it third time, fourth time, we should not look at marks getting 90% or 100% the second time doesn't really matter whether you get it or not. I don't think that's it. But what is useful when you do it fourth time or fifth time is that provided we read the question properly, provided we read that answers properly, provided we don't remember that answer and say, I picked this answer B, I will go and pick that again, it's of no use. So if you're going to repeat it even 100 times, remembering that option, I think that is not the correct way. The correct way is even if you do it twice or thrice, that's fine, but we should understand why I have picked that up. I think that's more emphasis that we should give. The third time, fourth time when I started doing it, then there was no pressure and I was enjoying reading that question. And I found that the first time I read, I got another understanding.
Yes.
When I read it fifth time, believe me, I had another understanding. So that's how it is. So that really helped me.
In the real exam. So on the exam day, you don't feel the tension. Whenever you get the question, you already have the experience to read it from 5 different angles. So that makes sure that you give the correct answer. And that was the same thing when I was telling you that don't focus on the question. And then I tell you in second or third time, just jumble up the sequence. And every time remember, especially after the third attempt, I tell you, don't focus on the answer, just focus on the questions. And try to understand how you pick the keyword from the question. They will guide you towards the answer. That is what I was telling you. Remember?
Right. So yes. So I simply followed reading the last line. That really helped. I think anybody who would have done your PMP course for you would follow that. But just a tip that I always read the last line, then read the first all the whole question, and then looked at the options. I think that's the way how I went, and that really helped me.
Okay, so Rajan, it was a great experience with you. We also learned a lot from your old school of learning that you said, going into the detail. But I think the summary is that the roadmap is the most important thing. Once you have a roadmap, okay, this is the sequence, in which sequence I'm going to study, do chapter-wise questions, read the book. Then later on, go for the master sheet to have the overview, integrate. That is basically integration of all the performance domains in the program lifecycle. Then you go to the mocks, you do the practice, and then at the end, when we have this final exam, final mock question, it gives you the experience how to read the question and be confident in your exam day. So that was a really pleasure to be working with you. Now at the end, if you would like to summarize your journey in 2 or 3 minutes, it will be very grateful for all our inspiring students, and how you would recommend our program for them.
Sure, sir.
Please.
So one thing that I would say is it is not difficult. Completing this PGP is not difficult. For somebody who has completed PMP, I think under your guidance, I think it is moderately easy. I would not consider this as a very difficult exam to crack. That's nothing like that. So if somebody who has completed PMP, this should be only thing. It's more of time-taking process where we fill the application, get that approved, then start this. I think that's the pain part here. But I think from a questions perspective, it is a moderately easy questions. Anybody who is devoting some time every week should be able to clear that. That's the confidence that I got from appearing in this. So it's an easy exam. Only thing is that we'll have to devote time, and that's all it is. And I'll have to thank you and Amir on whenever I try to call you guys, you were very appreciative and supportive. And if you have not pinged me every day and asked me what is the status, believe me, I would have still not completed this. So, so what is the lesson learned from me? If somebody who has already filled this application and we don't have a roadmap, I think the best way is to sum up, just make sure that your first milestone is to complete your chapter test, then start picking this mock test. You should be able to complete it within 2-3 months, even if you devote at least 2 to 3 hours a week. That shouldn't take time. So that's the confidence that I would help to the aspiring students, is that the questions are moderately easy. Anybody who has completed his PMP should be easy.
So thank you very much, Rajan. It was a great honor to be working with you. and I wish you all the best in your future, and we stay in contact. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sami, and I think I should also thank Amir.
Yes, sure.
Thank
Amir
you.
is